yesterday. And next June 3rd, we will have a year anniversary for 1 Million Cups, and we have invited the Hopkins Foundation to join us for that event. That will be a big blowout. We will invite everyone that's ever presented, plus all the regular people, and we will highly publicize that. I'm about 99.95% sure they are going to attend that. They were very excited about it. I thought that was a great idea. I was the first person to ever come up with that, but no, apparently people do that all the time. So anyway, I said, oh great, so you heard about that. And I was like, I said, oh, so people do it? And they said, oh yeah, people do it on their first year all the time. But anyway, I thought it was my first great idea, but anyway, it turns out I must have heard it from somebody else. Anyway, we will have that on June the 3rd, so don't plan your vacation during that time, Marianne.
Mine's not covered.
Okay, good deal. We have an entrepreneur luncheon next Tuesday at 11:30 at Great Mount Baptist Church. If you're an entrepreneur, we would like to honor you with that luncheon. Please see Barbara around today. If you're not an entrepreneur, but you just like to support the community and the entrepreneurs in our community, please let us know, and we'll be able to hook you up with a ticket for that too. Marianne's going to tell you about who we've got on
Rocket today. We have been really excited about the number of people that we've had present at 1 Million Cups. It's like I learn something every single week, and I continue to learn things. And today we've got a really good presenter and two wonderful gentlemen that I accidentally got while they were eating lunch. So it goes to show you that even when you're eating lunch, you could be the focus of someone's great aspirations. So the first person we're going to present today will be Terry. They're going to talk to us about Silver Star, some of the other wonderful things that they have done. I'm sure that they might be able to have time to talk about. So welcome them up here.
Good morning. I'm Harris.
Good morning.
This is my brother Phil. And going by the format, I'll try to condense a brief history in 6 minutes as far as how we started and some of our experiences, and I'll give the 6-minute overview, and then I'll let Phil address some of the questions. Doesn't seem like it, but we've been partners almost 16 years now. The store up here has been open almost 15. It took us, about a year before the planning stage. But my background is in accounting, and I graduated accounting degree from Auburn University. And Phil's background is in exercise physiology. And I guess that we came to be partners. It was primarily, I guess, my idea. And I give much respect and honor to my brother for believing in me and believing in my idea and becoming partners with me. But I was an accountant here in town at a local accounting firm. And I majored in accounting. I knew I didn't want to be an accountant, but it was a good degree to have because of its versatility. And I learned a lot just by those few years of doing public accounting. And then I started researching different businesses. And I decided, to try to research the fast food industry a little bit more. And at the time, my parents had a good piece of property that I thought would be ideal for a fast food place. And so we put together a business plan. And one of the obstacles we faced in the beginning was, just to be honest, we were young. My father wasn't too keen on the idea of going into the restaurant business because it's the #1 failed industry in the United States. And so they basically told us, here's a piece of property. If you're going to open up a Wendy's, Arby's, or any, it can be capital intense. And they said, here's a piece of property. After that, we're not going to be leveraged. You need to go out.
Especially our dad.
We're not going to be leveraged. You need to go out and find financing. So it was an obstacle. The big banks did not want to touch us for various reasons. Age, liquidity. Various other reasons. And we got turned down, And fortunately, things come together. At the time, there was a banker out of Webster County named Clark, and he was building a branch right next to where we wanted to build. And he was pretty aggressive, and if, the smaller banks can be a little more aggressive than the bigger banks. And so we approached approached them, and they financed our first venture, and that's how we got started. And in business, some things happen good, and some things you can't control happen bad. And one thing when we first opened our first one was McDonald's shut down and tore their building down about the same time we opened. So, you know, some things in timing. So that was a big boost, and we had a, even for the brand, I think we had a record opening, a record few months for the entire brand. So then, I think about after that period, about every 2 to 3 years, we would do a new deal. After that store, we went to Hopkinsville. And of course, once you get your foot in the door and prove yourself after the first store, the financing was easier to obtain. And we did Hopkinsville next. We co-branded that one with a TCBY in the beginning. And so have some experience with that brand. And then, interesting story in Hopkinsville is we've kind of learned different things along the way. Is you know, in business, as far as business assets, you know, for the most part, everything's for sale. And we had just bought that piece of property, and then we went through a lot of loopholes. We were already in the architectural phase, and the realtor called me and said, you know, Wendy's is interested in your property. And I looked around, you know, and at that particular location where you're at, once you get off the corner, you know, the property value, you know, it decreases more in that area than certain other areas in commercial property. And I looked at it, and I was like, I didn't even hear them out on the price. We didn't. And I was like, no, we're not interested. And sure enough, there's a corner across that I didn't think they would pay that much. There's a Subway, a pet store, and something else. And they ended up buying all of it and relocating everything. And, you know, I should have heard them out, what they paid.
We did really well there until Wendy's, and they took a percentage of our.
Yeah, and you know, any brand, you've got crossover as far as competition. You know, and if you know, if a Taco John's versus some brand we had, if Taco John's open, if the overlap is like this, you know, Wendy's had more of an overlap, so they hurt us more too. But and then we went down to Clarksville, and that was a booming town, a booming area. It's still one of the fastest growing towns in the United States. And we were more on the Nashville and Clarksville, about 30 miles to downtown Nashville. And that store did well. And then during the time, so much of anything in business is trying to pick the right brand. You know, if you get in the right brand, you get in the right brand early, you can take off with the brand. And then if you get in the wrong brand, things can go the other way. And during our period when we first got in with Backyard, it was headed. Around the time we did Hopkinsville, they were doing a deal with Yum Foods, which basically Yum was doing a test, and they were co-branding some Backyard burgers with Taco Bell's. They did about 10 of them. And basically, they were testing the waters to see if they wanted to buy the company. And some of the data didn't go what they wanted. And so, you know, that didn't work out. We were hoping it would, because it would have really exploded the brand. And then shortly after we did Clarksville, Backyard sold out to a private equity. And originally we thought it was a good deal because the private equity managed about $1 billion in different things that they own. And they brought in a guy that had a lot of experience, so we thought they were going to take the brand, you know, to a higher level. But come to find out, it went the opposite direction of the private equity purchase. And so shortly after Clarksville, then we did the number 9, and we had that for a while. And then I guess I kind of saw the writing on the wall, I guess you'd say. So when we would do a deal, we'd always do the real estate, and a lot of people don't know this too, but like McDonald's is, some brands buy real estate, some lease. McDonald's is one of the largest commercial property owners in the nation because they typically purchase. So we started looking for, we didn't like the direction. We started looking for, I guess, the diversify out of the brand then. And we had sold the Clarksville store back to the private equity and kept the real estate. And it was a good deal for us. We were going to make our money back on rent. And then during that period in Hopkinsville, since the direction of the brand, we'd been approached by Walgreens. And going back to some things in life, you know, go your way and some don't. We'd had a really favorable contract with Walgreens, and if they want a corner, they'll certainly pay. And that's when the economy hit. And so they at the Walgreens brand pretty much just canceled 90% of their growth. So here, I'll get to why we transferred to Silver Star, and then we'll open up for questions. Because you know, a lot of things in business. That store up in Madisonville was our best store, and as far as cash flow and reliability of cash flow, it was very stable. In fact, the year that we transferred, it was probably our most profitable year. So you're asking, you know, if you got a good thing, don't mess with it. Why did we change backyard at Silver Star in Madisonville? So the brand, as I said, we were correct. They went the wrong direction after they bought out. And what they did is, and it's a private equity, it was strictly a number deal as far as where they take the brand. His backyard owned a lot of real estate, and they had a lot of cash on their books. So when the private equity bought it, they took a lot of the cash, which kind of strapped the company. They took the real estate and sold it off to real estate reps or investors, took that cash to pay for most of the deal. So then they leveraged their company, probably more than they should have. And then of course, they were forecasting their sales to go that direction, and they went that direction. So, to make a long story short, they ended up filing Chapter 11, and we were in a difficult situation that we were both a landlord and a franchisee. And so they would pay us money and we would pay them money. Well, they defaulted on their lease. And not only did they default on the lease, when we sold them that property down there, when we sold the equipment, we sold it to them real cheap, but we had to buy back to retain it, because if they did default, it's much easier to lease a building with equipment in it than not equipment. So they backed the semi up to the back door in the middle of the night, took all the equipment,
Took the sinks and everything they could get off the walls.
and so, you know, it really was a learning experience as far as
Well, and then they tried to come back and take the signs, and I went down there and almost had a physical altercation with them, saying, you know, you're not stealing the signs too.
But what's disheartening is, you know, we're partners with them, and we were paying them a substantial sum every week just in royalty, and so, you know, and they were like, well, those are two different contracts, you know, and you know, when they sold out to the private equity, before the prior owners, it was like a family. We knew the owners. We would go to conventions, and after that, we were more of a number. And so they knew what they're doing. You know, they filed bankruptcy about a week after that. Didn't respond to our letters. And that was a very learning experience, as far as just to let it go. Because you're not going to get your equipment back, but you spend more on legal fees trying to get it back than what it's worth. And So after that time, we were like, you know, this is, and we were paying them royalty. And so after that, we were like, you know, this is not a brand we want to be associated with. So back when we were doing the Walgreens deal, a guy from Yum Foods contacted us about Taco Bell. And so we ended up remembering that contact, and we contacted them, and we ended up, everything worked out for us. You know how some things in life, bad things happen, but good things fall in place. We ended up leasing the property in Hopkinsville to Yum, and we still have some extra property there that we can do stuff with. And then in Clarksville, we ended up leasing that, even though they pulled all the equipment out. It worked out well. We ended up leasing that to Taco Bell as well. So
Franchisee.
Right, franchisee. So everything turned out, and then this store, that was a hard thing to do at this store, is converting something away from something, because even though the company was in Chapter 11, we were still doing very well. And it was a hard decision, business decision to make. But I will say that even though when that store was open and they owed us money, we still paid them the royalty until the day we shut down. And that was, you know, a difficult check to write too. So that pretty well, and I guess we have slowly transferred different things, and we've done some other deals and things just aside from restaurants. And we have more probably real estate now, but things being leased than we are in restaurants. So I will open it up to questions and let.
Would you do it again?
I think so. I mean, you know.
Because it's a hard story. I mean, it's like it's great and it's bad, and it's great and it's bad.
I wouldn't do it again right now, at my age and his age, no. I mean, if we were both in our 20s again, yeah. But, you know, the labor and just trying to deal with four stores, 4 locations. It's always more stress on there, so let's me. So I wouldn't do it again right now, but I just maybe cross my 20s again, yeah. Didn't have a lot to lose then, you know. So I guess if we went back, I would, wouldn't you?
What would you do differently? Not knowing what you know now.
That's a different question, you know, would we pick a different brand? You know, that's so much of it too, is.
Yeah, and you know, he says everything works out for a reason. He researched it, and his number one thing was we looked at Fazoli's and really wanted to do it Fazoli's instead of a backyard, and it didn't work out. The demographics didn't match. Someone else had the franchise territory. And then we looked at Hardee's, and we went to Rocky Mount, North Carolina, got up at 3:30 or 4 in the morning and made biscuits, and was set on doing Hardee's. And then they came back and said, well, we want you to take this location over here on East Center. That's, in my opinion, it was, the building had some issues, it had sunk a bunch, and, you know, used equipment, and they wanted us to buy it, you know, pay for it. And I'm like, you know, so they kind of at the end said, you know, you can build a Hardee's there, but you got to take this one as part of the package deal. So that didn't work. So, you know, it all kind of worked out, because Backyard was probably the third choice, wasn't it, as far as franchise?
Yeah, probably was their choice.
So,
You know, at one time, Backyard they were going in the right direction. You know, and they're back out of Chapter 11, and this is another hard thing too, is, you know, I have good friends with an attorney down in Mississippi, and he's involved in a lot of different brands. And they've since, you know, cleaned house.
they got a new CEO.
They got a new CEO, and this guy is moral and ethical, and he's a nice guy, and I talked to him on the phone, and of course he wants us to switch back. You know, right now we're not, but, you know, who's to say in 10 years that they, you know, there's been certain brands that have gone low and then they turn themselves around. I mean, Sonic at one time in the 80s was this close to going the other direction, and they turned it around.
When you decided on a franchise at the time, how much did I mean, how much variance is there in franchise fees with the different brands?
Well, mostly how they make their money is on their percent. You know, your franchise fee, it varies, you know, but most of them make their money on the royalty they charge, you know, and it all varies, you know. Typically it's between 4 to 7%, but some of them have a high advertising component as well. And it just depends on the brand and how strong the brand is, and you know what their market can get.
Did you look at any other franchises, even besides food service? Because there's thousands of franchise companies out there. And really, from my understanding, the one thing that a franchise will do to a new business startup will give you that structure. They have the operating manual that says, this is what you do, here's our sign, here's our procedures and manuals, and you provide the money and the labor, but they've already got the structure on how to run this thing. Some of them are run very tightly. A McDonald's, you're not going to go in there and start substituting equipment and changing your procedures much. You know, they have it in place. Others give you a lot of latitude. Sonic's one of them that used to. But that's all with food service. Now, you can go into, I mean, Buffalo Express is a franchise. A lot of these other, they're automotives, they're all kinds of things that are franchised. Did you look at anything else besides food service?
It was primarily food service.
Mm-hmm. The food service is one of the toughest businesses around to operate.
You know, and fast food's a different, you know, a different animal too. You know, we've been full service and fast food, and you know, you go in and you think the dining room's busy, but we're doing more volume through the window.
Well, did either one of you guys work in the fast food industry as teenagers?
I
That's why they need a franchise.
I did.
Did you?
Harris worked before
Yeah,
he decided this. He worked with
When I was in college, I worked.
And you liked it?
I enjoyed it. I mean, I liked it
Yeah,
better than
it was my first
I liked
job.
it better than doing tax returns.
I can understand that.
But I mean, you also worked for a franchise
Yeah,
here.
I did.
The Burger King guy, Roger.
Is Silver Star a franchise?
No, that's strictly a brand we started.
See, that's the downside to franchises. They're great to get you started. You know, I mean, you don't, not saying you don't have to know what, you have to know less. And you've got less at risk by going to a franchise because they've done it before and they know how to do it. But once you're into it and you've got the routine down, you know how to do it, you're still paying them the franchise fees, you know, years after you're in business. And where now then that franchise isn't helping you as much as it was early on. That's the downside.
Yeah,
to it.
I mean, Harris will tell you, he knows the numbers. I mean, Brothers Barbecue or any mom and pop, number 9,
Yeah.
they'll tell you that, you know, you are paying a lot less, like for our meat and food and paper costs and napkins, you know, we're gonna pay a lot less as Backyard for those products, and we had to deal with Pepsi. You know, we're using Dr. Pepper and Coke. So you gotta weigh it out. You know, you're not paying a royalty, you're not paying that advertising. Harris will tell you one of the biggest frustrating things with Backyard is they were out of Nashville and Memphis. We're paying all this money for national advertising, we're not receiving any of it. We're paying into it, we're not really getting any commercials or advertising here, but we're still paying into that. Not only that, we have to also pay a percentage to local advertising.
But
So
there
it's
is,
pros and cons.
there is a trade-off, because your food, when you're buying food in bulk, you get a much better price than when you're buying it just by yourself.
So like he said, if they had joined up with Young,
Yeah.
$1 billion company, like McDonald's, we're gonna pay a lot less for a styrofoam cup or maybe some Pepsi than mom and pop is.
Yeah.
One observation, and I eat there quite often, but one observation I have is that actually I think the food is better now than it was before.
Hey, one more question, and one more. I can see you over there.
I mean, you just said something that blew my mind. I had no idea that Silver Star was not a franchise. That y'all just came up with this.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, how did you get the name? I mean,
How
I
did we
see
get
that
the
says
name?
pays homage to our community. What does that mean?
Well, we guess we got the name is, my son Michael is named after his grandfather on my wife's side, Michael. And he was a World War II veteran, and I got to be close with him before he passed. And I had much respect. You know, he shared some stories with me that he probably didn't share with anybody else. And so I wanted, you know, people go to a restaurant for the food and service, but how we came up with the name, we were just trying to formulate something different than the sports theme or something else, and we just wanted to, Silver Star, of course, is a military honor, so we just kind of tied that.
Yeah, I love it even more. Great. That's a great thing to do. Great thing to do. Well, we thank you for coming and sharing your story with us. Of course, we'll have it on YouTube as well, so you can share it with friends and family and other business entrepreneurs and stuff, and probably have some questions after. So I appreciate it very much.